Please welcome the incredible Sandra Chuma.
You're too kind, Renee. Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's so great to be here. I've been listening to your podcast and absolutely love the diversity of the women that you interview. So it's so cool to be a guest.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for joining us. I know that you came in my feed one day and it's just like magic. Some people are just meant to be there. And you have some incredible stories to share. And it's a big reason why I wanted to have you on this show because it's very unique and you're doing some big, powerful things. And I think the world needs to know more about you. So if I can be a platform for more people to hear your message, then that's my job for us today.
Oh,
You're welcome.
thank you.
All right, so let's kick things off really quickly. What do you do and who do you do it for?
Oh my gosh. What do I do? Literally, I'm like, "Ooh, what do I do again?" I wear so many titles. I'm a mentor, I'm a coach, I'm a podcast host, I've made documentary films. But if I had to say at my core, what I hope I do in the world is to model possibility. I work predominantly with women and I work a lot with female entrepreneurs. And my hope is that through sharing my story and my entrepreneurial journey and the experiences that I've had, that I can inspire them to create extraordinary lives. And for me, it's not about the 7 figures or the 8 figures or whatever the number is. It's about living a life that truly feels fulfilling, like living a life that gives you the freedom, the joy, the income, and the impact that means something to you. So that's what I help people do.
I love it. I did a workshop this morning, and one of the things that I had mentioned in the workshop is about how we need to kill the idea that the only way to be validated as an entrepreneur is to make over $1 million. I get it. Money's a great motivator. But the reality is that there's so much pressure for us to create these businesses that make a certain amount of revenue in order to feel validated. Is silly. It's very silly because it puts a lot of pressure on people to reach a certain level of which that might not be in alignment with what they want to do, because to go from 0 to 1 million is no easy circus. I don't even know the word. It is a circus. You're met with a lot of clams and possibly elephants and lions. The point being is not everyone is made for it. And I don't think that we need to say, I want to make $1 million just for the sake of it. Some arbitrary number that we throw out. Most people don't understand what it takes to get there. And then they get depressed. Their self-worth is diminished. So what is your take?
And and this is exactly why I share what I share. So kind of to give you the Cold Notes version of my life is I grew up really poor. I literally grew up in a mud hut with no running water, no electricity. And so having grown up there, the aspiration was if I could just make money, right? If I could just make my first whatever it was. And so that's what I thought would give me happiness, was chasing all these goals. And I thought I was in corporate for a long time. If I could just get to a place where I'm at this particular level and I'm making $100,000, and then I got there and it's okay, I'm not happy. Oh, it must be because it's not. And then you keep chasing these numbers. And then when I started my own business, that's what it became, this continual chase for more and more, and thinking that on the other side of whatever that was, that's where the joy was. And nowadays, like you say, Renee, it's become, having a 6 or a 7-figure business has become like the little black dress, right? Everyone thinks that they should have one. And yet it truly is about, what does happiness mean for you? Because as you said, building $1 million business is not for the faint of heart. As I experienced, I burnt out not once, but twice in building a multiple 7-figure business. And so it's really about, what are you looking for? Because if you're looking for the validation through the business, through the accomplishments, you're always going to end up feeling empty.
Oh, I know this. And I'm going to put a really silly, stupid example on the table here. Is I've done so many challenges in my life. One was 75 hard, another were business challenges, revenue challenges, where once I achieved something, I would buy myself something. right? Buy myself something because I thought the gift of achievement was a physical thing. And my last achievement was a revenue goal for my business. And I went out and I bought myself a very expensive bag. This is the the third time I've done this. Every single time I bring my bag out on its first hot date, and people ask me, I love that bag. Like, how much was it? And how do you feel after buying this bag? And I go, nothing has changed. Those 3 bags now, for the most part, sit on my shelf. They collect dust. Hey, they're great bags and I love them. There's some people that are way into fashion. They're probably like, Renee, you're absurd. However, what I realized in the process was that wasn't the gift that I should be giving myself. The gift is really the joy in achieving that goal and celebrating it with other people. Because I could have used those funds and resources for something that was more memorable than a bag.
Well, the bag is nice. I'm sure it's nice. But you're right? Is that, and we're conditioned. Like if you think about literally from when we're little, right? Little for those of you who have children who are listening, it's conditional, right? You achieve this grade and you're good. And then you achieve this accomplishment and you're good. And so we learn from a very early age to tie our worthiness and our worth to external validation. It's not about how do I feel about myself. It's about how do other people feel or how do other people perceive me? And then that becomes then a really, like I said, a very empty thing that you're constantly chasing because it's a hole that can never be fulfilled. It's ultimately about, like you said, about the journey. It's not about the destination, it's about the journey and who do I become in the journey? And can I enjoy the journey? And can I celebrate the invisible progress, like the little steps on the way? It doesn't have to wait for it to be the big thing for me to celebrate. And so that's, I think, a huge thing that's missing. And I think also my experience in coaching a lot of successful female entrepreneurs is that they're on to the next thing. Like they barely acknowledge this accomplishment before they've even completed this accomplishment. They're already thinking about the next and the next and the next. And so it's like, at what point do we decide that I'm going to take a moment to acknowledge myself, to acknowledge who I've become, to acknowledge the journey, and that it doesn't always have to also be about just the accomplishments.
That's so true. And it kind of rubs head with some of my approach to PR. And here's why. It's because in the media landscape, when we look at things like how many followers you have on social media, that ends up being like your social credibility. And there are people out there that have insane credibility and so wicked smart and have beautiful content and they don't have that many followers. And so part of what we do is we have to build up that authority, which is that influence, which ends up being the follower number. So that ends up being like your digital currency is how big your audience is. And the reward is how much it's growing week over week, month over month. There isn't a lot of importance in this. However, where people lose is where they think that they're only valid the more their audience grows. They only can be recognized. They can only be smart. They can only get paid more the more their audience grows. And to some people, that's the truth. But for the most part, it's like I think about those days and those weeks where I don't even look on social. I guarantee you my happiness goes up. My happiness.
And the thing with nowadays with social as well is it's become such a comparison game. And I feel like it really robs us of enjoying our accomplishments or enjoying our lives because we're always like, oh, but I'm not doing as much as this person, or I don't have as many followers, or I'm not, like, we're always comparing ourselves. And I think we sometimes blur that line between what is reality and what isn't. And remembering as well that a lot of the time what we see on social media is highlight reels, it's, photos that took a long lighting and all kinds of things. And then we measure ourselves against this impossible standard. And that leads to an erosion of our self-worth and our belief in ourselves. And so it's something we have to be so careful about is what are we consuming and what are we allowing things to mean? Because ultimately, nothing has any meaning except the meaning you give it. And so what do you make it mean when people unfollow or when people leave horrible comments on a post of yours, or when a post doesn't do well, and not using that or not allowing that to be a measure or validation of yourself?
Okay, well, let's talk about this because a great question that I wanted to ask you about this is how do you handle criticism or negative feedback while maintaining a healthy sense of self-worth?
I think first of all, I'm human. And so I'm not going to lie and say like, oh, I just let it wash over me, because it's human for you to take it in and for you to be sometimes perturbed, upset, whatever the word is. I think though what I've come to realize is that the things that upset me, the things that trigger me, there is a reason that they trigger me. They're there to help me learn and to grow and to see where I'm not free. And so sometimes when someone makes a comment, it's the reason it hurts is because there's some part of me that believes that or that thinks that's true. And so it's really become a great exercise for me to see, okay, like, what is this telling me? Why would it hurt me? Like, where is it that I believe that, or where is it that I'm lacking in terms of my self-worth? It'd be easy for me to say, oh, I don't listen to it. But I do. Of course, I take it in. And I've also had to learn to look at who's saying it. Because the one thing that I know for sure is that oftentimes the critics are loudest, right? The people who support you sometimes, especially on social media, maybe don't speak up as much. And so it's looking at who's saying it and looking at it as well from the perspective of, is this someone whose advice I would take? Like, is this someone who's achieved what it is that I want to achieve? Because oftentimes it's someone who hasn't achieved, who sometimes is imposing or superimposing or projecting their limitations onto you. So I think that's always an important part, to look at the credibility of who it's coming from to see, is this something I should be paying attention to? Or is this showing me somewhere where I've got something to work on within myself?
Yeah, I love that. And our son, Max, has a YouTube channel. This is all relevant. And he's been getting a lot of comments on his content. He's got like 2,500 subscribers. He gets like thousands of views on his shorts. It's hilarious. Wow. But he gets hundreds of comments. And the stuff people say, I'm like, that is so out of left field. Why is that? And he'll come to me and we'll say, like, we're helping him navigate this world of criticism. And my husband came in and he had the best comment ever. And it's relevant to this situation. He goes, thank them. They just juiced your algorithm for you. Like, right? YouTube, Instagram, TikTok sees comments as comments. And all of a sudden it's like that content's going to rank higher. So he's like, yeah, thank you, haters. Like, applaud, standing ovation for the haters, because guess what? Now all these social platforms are like, oh, this is an interesting post. Yes, you can go in and delete. We just tell them, listen, if it's not extremely offensive, then keep it there. Don't engage. Don't engage. Just leave it there. And he's like, that's a really good point. And we always say, if the person has a cat picture and a name followed by a bunch of numbers, it's not really a person. Now, unless they have an actual name and a picture, then maybe their criticism is warranted. But people that just troll, no. You can thank the trolls for feeding your algorithm.
And you're absolutely right in that what I've heard is that the algorithm sees when someone says a negative thing or a negative comment, that it actually boosts you, because then it's like, oh, controversy. But like you said, it's like, I often wonder about the people who troll. And I'm like, how miserable must your life be that this is what you do? Like, how much time do you have on your hands? And so, yeah, it really is about looking at who's saying it. And okay, some things, yes, just, okay, over my head. Some things just really don't deserve the time. And what a beautiful lesson your son is learning at such a young age. Maybe I need to come to him for like some YouTube lessons to grow my channel.
Oh my gosh, he got it so dialed in too. One day he was like, just going through his analytics on YouTube, I go, where do you find this? Like, how do you even know it's there? And he's like, look at this this video got me this many new subscribers. And I was like, wow, I was dumbfounded. He's 11 and he started this when he was 10. And here's the thing is when a kid, especially a child, is passionate about something, it's the parent's responsibility to support that passion.
Yeah.
And he loves basketball and he loves his YouTube channel. And yes, YouTube screen time, however, that we put some parameters around it, but we support it because we say we're a household of creators, not consumers. If we are going to be...
What a powerful, like for him, what a powerful thing. Can you imagine what that's doing for him and his self-esteem and his sense of his place in the world is being able to learn, to grow, to build something on his own? Like, that's incredible. Like he'll be giving us like motivational talks soon, right?
I hope so. And people are like, what is the content that he creates? And he's obsessed with CapCut. And he'll just record himself playing Roblox. And then he puts like a trending audio on top of it. And he CapCuts his way. It's just the stuff he builds is so incredible. And I'm happy this is his passion because what it does, and we're going to talk about self-worth, is it feeds that self-worth. He's something he loves to do, he's good at, and the people he admires the most in his life is cheerleading for him. That is like the ultimate of what you want in your life, right?
Yeah. 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 What exactly, like you said, like even for us as grownups, I think that's what so many of us are, like you said, we're talking about the building 6 and 7 figure businesses because everybody else is doing it. Imagine if people were actually doing the things they love because they love them, not because of an outcome, not because, and that's probably why he is so successful, because he's doing it because he loves it. It's not about like this is what it's going to give me. He literally just doing something he loves. And isn't that like at its purest, isn't that what we all want, to be able to do what we love and, have fun doing it?
Yeah. And the real question comes down to those that do love social media is, would you still do what you're doing if you weren't allowed to share it online? Yeah. And if they're like, no, then it's like, you don't love doing this.
Yeah.
But if the answer is yes, then social media is an amplifier. And the reality is people see the truth in the content they put out, because it's like you can see the conviction in their videos. You can see the excitement in the content they're sharing versus what they feel is just like a robotic way of sharing social. But I want to rewind a little bit here to talk about self-worth, because I'm curious what you define it to be and what it means to you.
Self-worth is kind of, talk about your son for a second. It's that feeling of I'm doing something that I love for me, that I'm fulfilled. This brings me joy. This makes me feel good. And also, it's not necessarily about doing. I really think that self-worth is a state of being. How do I feel about myself? Am I able to look in the mirror and be able to actually look myself in the eye and say, I love myself? You know, what's so fascinating, Renee, is if you Google this, and I'm going to challenge your audience to try this, and for just about everybody that I've done this with, it worked. If you pull up a Google search bar and you type in, how do I learn to? For most people, the number one search result that comes up, when it prompts you is, are you going to do it?
Love myself.
Bingo. Can you believe that? We live in a world where people are literally turning to Google to figure out how to have the most important relationship in your life, which is with yourself. And so that's what
other love. So that shocked me. So the next one is, how do I learn to code? How do I learn to type faster? How do I learn to draw, speak Spanish, ride a motorcycle, crochet, trust myself, and drive?
Isn't that insane? That in the top 10, we're asking Google, how do I love myself? How do I learn to trust myself? That speaks to how little we've learned about what does it truly mean to love ourselves and how do we love ourselves? And going back to what we're saying at the beginning is so many of us have learned to tie our self-worth to external, to the accolades, to the achievements, to the business, to something outside of ourselves, when really what we're looking for is a relationship with ourselves, to learn to love ourselves and to feel worthy, to feel like we're, just by virtue of us being here, we're deserving of whatever it is that we desire.
My husband and I were at a couples retreat in Denver, Colorado about a month ago. Or maybe, I don't even know when we went. A month ago. And we got deep into discussion with the facilitators, and my husband was sharing his story. And he's like, everything seems to be on edge, like on the edges. And he was explaining the story on edge, on edge. And Claire turns to him and goes, well, maybe you should turn those edges inward. Think about like a square a blanket, right? And you turn those edges inward. Now they become to the center. So it's like everything is about what's on the inside, that worthiness, that drive to be an entrepreneur or not, to be a mother or not, to grow your business or not. It's all in here.
Yeah.
And yet we still look outside of us to be like, is this okay? Should I do this? Should I do this? Should I say it this way? Should I show up like this? We do it every day. I did it today. I was on a phone call with a client's client, of all things. We're connecting the dots because I'm working with an influencer. There's a lot of people involved, really famous people. And I didn't put my foot down to say with conviction the things I thought we should do. And it's because I didn't trust myself.
Do you see? Like literally, like if you think about the search results that you just had, like it's like, okay, love myself, crochet, code, whatever, trust myself, is that we've been taught not to trust ourselves. We've been taught to second guess ourselves. And we've also been taught that, oh, you have to look at what other people think and use that as the consensus, as what the standard by which you should measure yourself. And so we don't even know how to turn inward. We don't even know how to like really go to our own center. And it's part of the reason, like one of the biggest questions that I often get asked in coaching is, what's my purpose? How do I find my purpose? And I think a huge part of why so many people struggle with what is my purpose is because we don't know ourselves. We don't even really know, like, what is my favorite color? Like, without looking at what Pantone is it for this year? Like, that's the what's telling us what color we should like. Like that, we've so farmed out our power, our sense of who we are, that we've lost ourselves for the most part. And it's why
it has a coolness factor. I just did this with a pink color a year ago. I was like, what's the cool paint color now? And I went on Pantone 2022 color of the year is a sage green. I'm like, perfect. It's a good thing I love it. And every time I go to get my nails done, I always look at what's like the fall color of 2023 for nails. It's like latte and green and electric orange. And I'm like, I don't actually like any of these. I'm just going to be that old lady that goes with my typical like cotton candy pink. I just love this color. You know what? It's me. And when you show up and you are fully you, everyone else around you feels that.
Yeah. So
when I went from like be PR to coaching, because I retired my past agency, I was never in alignment with coaching. I wanted to come back into PR. As soon as I did, I was worried about my identity and what people would say. Oh, Renee's doing this. Can she even make up her mind? Everybody was like, finally, we were all waiting for you to do this.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, really? It's because it's what I want to do.
Yeah. And that's what lights, when we're talking about like going back to the example with your son, when we're doing the things that light us up. And the other piece too, Renee, is that a lot of people don't know. You just said the keyword identity. Who am I? Like, who do I want to be in the world? And then a lot of people also have never taken the time to think about what their values are. Like, what's important to me? Like, never mind what the world says, but what's actually important to me, and is what I'm doing aligning with those values. And that's often for me in coach, when I'm coaching women in particular, that's often the rub, is that they're out of alignment, right? Their values and what's important to them is out of alignment with the business they're building, or, the things that they're doing. And then they wonder why there's this constant friction, why they constantly feel overwhelmed, stressed out, burned out. It's because there's no alignment there. And so, yeah, that's a huge part of feeling fulfilled is, are you living in alignment with your values?
Yeah. And this is why sometimes social media breaks are great. But even it's like sometimes we don't even know our values because we were raised in homes that we can't control, or our childhood is what happened. And we think that these values are, well, some of them are just forced upon us for the most part. We don't even know that we've been instilled these values. And we think, well, if I had a great childhood, then this is the way greatness is the way that I grew up because it was great for me, when that's not necessarily true. And so to seek our values really turning inwards and being like, I don't like this, or this is important to me. And it could be like, do you know that parents now spend more time with their children than they ever did historically that we know of? And yet the quality of the time all over the internet, like parents are too busy, they're on their phones. I go, I don't necessarily think that's true.
Yeah.
I feel like we're spending more quality time with our kids because we can. Because technology has enabled us to do things better and more efficiently, yet we're just like being beaten down by these parenting coaches saying no screen time and it's like, maybe it's true for the most part, but one of the values for me is family dinners. And my kids are like 10, 11 years old. They just want to inhale whatever's in front of them and get out of there. They don't
go back to their game.
They don't want to hang out. And so we try as much as we can. The other thing that's a huge value for me, which I love, which we always giggle, is the effectiveness of a good cuddle puddle. Try it next time with your people, your significant other, your children, whoever's around you, your dog. A cuddle puddle. That closeness, that connection, even if it's just 2 minutes, oh my gosh. It's like you regulate each other's heartbeat.
Yeah.
Right.
That's so true. And when you look at, like, I see this so often, like where you're out somewhere and like at a dinner table or whatever, and everybody's on their phone. So even though like people are together, they're not together. And so I truly feel like that's one of the things that we're craving. And especially coming out of the time that we came out of, I hope it's something that we appreciate so much more, is being able to have that connection, the physical connection. Because you think about how much we miss that. So yes, the importance of physical connection is,
Oh yeah, I know. And like, and then there's so much around that too, to unpack. But I think when it comes to talking about self-worth too, is how much it's hijacked by that addiction to our devices and by the comparisonitis we have, is that your self-worth is diminished in correlation to what you see online. I don't have that car. I don't have that bag, but we know Renee does. Renee has the bags, which doesn't
Renee has the bags.
My life. Like I don't have this friendship. And it's like you said, it is the people that might be upset with you, those trolls that come out, is their public declaration of how much they dislike you is actually just a reflection of what's going on inside. They haven't turned those edges inwards yet, and they need to, and they don't want to because it's going to be painful.
It's uncomfortable. It's the reason most people don't do it, because it's so much easier to farm out our responsibility, to farm out our unhappiness, to farm out our happiness as well, to think that we can get it from something outside of ourselves. And one of the greatest, this surprised me. I remember watching something where Gary Vee was speaking, Gary Vee of all people, and he was asked, what is the greatest skill that someone can have? And he said, self-awareness. And I was so intrigued by that, because so many people are so unself-aware, right? People don't want to spend the time in reflection because, like you said, it is sometimes uncomfortable to come face to face with yourself, to come face to face with the things that you know you should be doing that you're not, to come face to face with all of the things like who am I? What is it that I want for myself? What's my place in the world? And so I agree that it is about turning those edges inward, and spending time is one of the reasons, like Worthy, my platform, it's both about speaking to self-worth and worthiness and self-love, but it's also 6 pillars. And one of the pillars is reflection, because I realize that success comes from being able to spend time with yourself in reflection.
Yes. So I was having this conversation with my husband, who always has to be on the phone when we're in the car. He's got to be talking to someone. And he's like, you know what I learned the other day? is that you should be sitting in your car in silence sometimes. And I'm like, James, I do that every day. He's like, what? I go, drive the kids to school. We play our music in the morning. We have a playlist every day. We pump each other up. As soon as I drop them off, 90% of the time, I'm in silence. I won't listen to anything. And I will talk to myself. So people on the outside think I'm on a phone call, but I'm on a phone call with my mind. And let me tell you, it is the best form of talk therapy. Because like sometimes you're really angry about something and you just talk to yourself, you talk it out. By the time you get to your destination, you're like, woof, I'm good to go. Next.
And isn't it such a great way as well to problem solve, like actually giving yourself that brain space, giving your mind, your subconscious mind, that space to process? Because we're so bombarded constantly. We live in a world where we're constantly like in distraction. And so giving yourself that space, that time to just be with yourself, like it's such a gift. I love being with myself.
I would love to be with you too. Okay. So anyway, I do too. I love alone time, and it is a value of ours. Like every week with my husband and I each have our nights where it's like, we can do whatever we want. And I just usually, I'm like, I want to be alone. I don't want to look at my phone. I just want to have a bath. And we all have different things we want to do with our free time. But I enjoy my own company when I'm not like PMSing. Because I don't like that her that I have to hang out with in those 2 days.
That time doesn't count.
No, I'm like, you are such a bitch. But all this self-worth talk is really, I really want to like come back full circle to living really all out. And in my world, it's all about building authority, right? So you got to put yourself out there to build that authority, to be on podcasts, to get on stages, to speak your truth. And in all of that, because you do this really well, is how important is that self-worth to growing your authority?
It is the key. You said something earlier when we were talking about how people feel it, how it's energy, right? Ultimately, yes, and this is science, not just woo-woo stuff, that we are energy and people read your energy. And whenever you can tell when someone is saying something they don't believe, or when someone is saying something and they don't feel confident. And so really self-worth is the foundation. It is if you're not feeling good about yourself, it's very hard to put yourself out there. It's hard for you to show up authentically. And so I truly believe that self-love and self-worth are the key to being able to show up fully and play full out in life, whatever that looks like for you. But also they're the key to you creating whatever your version of an extraordinary life is. So it is the foundation. I think people are always looking for, like when people come to me for coaching, they're looking for, give me the strategy, give me the, and I always want to start with, but how do you feel about you? How do you feel about yourself? What's your relationship with yourself? Because if you're trying to build strategy on top of a shaky foundation, that is a house of cards that's going to collapse. And is why, when the haters come hating, then you're going to crumble because you don't have a firm sense of yourself and who you are and your place in the world. And also for lack of a better way to put it, your worthiness to see yourself as an expert, right? Because there's nobody who's going to come crown you and say, you, dear girl or dear boy, are worthy of being an expert, right? You get to decide, like, I'm an expert.
It's so true. Oh my gosh. In all this, so we're talking about worthiness. And now you got something really cool that you launched a couple of months ago. Tell us about this thing. What is it?
I launched an app. It's something that I've been working on for a while. And it's actually something that I wish someone had given it to me. It was actually inspired by a coaching client of mine where, we'd meet every week and I'd coach her. And she said to me once, she's like, oh, I wish I could have in between our coaching sessions, I wish I could have you in my pocket. I wish I could like just tune into a message or something from you, like on the days when I'm feeling down or even when I'm just having a good day and I just want to step into being inspired. And so that actually inspired me to create the app. And what the app is every day you get what I call a daily love note, and it's equal parts a loving kick in the pants, inspiration, motivation, but also practical and applicable tools for you to actually create the life that you want. I also have meditations on there. I have self-hypnosis on there, because what I really believe is part of the reason why so many people struggle is at a subconscious level, we hold beliefs that are counter to what our conscious mind is saying. So it's the reason why you might consciously think, oh, I want to whatever it is, I want to build my business. And then you find yourself self-sabotaging. It's because there's a conflict between your conscious mind and your subconscious mind. So with my brand, I'm really looking at bringing together tools, inspiration, motivation, all of the things to actually practically help you, things that you can apply to bring together the left brain logic and consciousness with the right brain, which is all about your intuition and feeling and all of that, and bringing it together so that you can create an extraordinary life. So launched that app and it has all of that on it.
And what's it called?
It's called I Am Worthy. So you can search for it. It's available both on the Google Play Store and Apple App Store. And you just look for I Am Worthy. And for anybody who wants to try it out, who's like, who's this girl and what's she talking about? There's actually a free trial. So you get to sign up, try it for free. And you can cancel at any time. There's a monthly subscription, an annual subscription. And included as part of that, I actually do monthly live coaching workshops, masterclasses on different topics related to whatever it is that is coming up for a lot of people in the community.
I love that. Well, thank you so much for bringing that to the world. I started, I think, snooping around like the download and sign up the other day. But all this talk about self-worth got me realizing I got to go hit the gym because I started this program today. And let me tell you what it's called. It's called the 25 Hard-ish. So have you heard of 75 Hard?
I heard of 75 Hard.
Yeah. So we have this, my friend and I, Jessica, we're doing this thing called 25 Hard-ish because it's kind of hard, but it's not as hard as 75 Hard. We have to do one 45-minute workout. Mm-hmm. And with 75 Hard, the rule is you have to do 2 a day. One has to be outside regardless of weather conditions. And ours is like 45 minutes once a day, but you have to sweat. Good enough. Mm-hmm. 100 sit-ups, which could be part of that workout. Don't take 45 minutes to do 100 sit-ups, though. It defeats the purpose. To read 10 pages of a book, drink 3 liters of water, follow a diet, no sugar, no alcohol, 140 grams of protein. That is 25 Hard-ish.
And you started it today?
Today is day 1.5. See, I didn't have sugar or alcohol yesterday, but I didn't do the other things. But I say that's progress.
That is progress. And that actually is, for anybody who's listening, because one of the other things that I'm certified in is as a habits coach, that is actually one of the greatest ways to lock in a habit is to celebrate. Even the half progress is we don't celebrate ourselves enough. And research says that one of my mentors has been studying behavior for 30 years. And he says that's one of the things most people struggle with is celebrating ourselves. So celebrate the small progress, celebrate the small milestones, celebrate the invisible progress on the journey to whatever it is, because that's all going to help you.
Well, and here's the thing too. Progress now is like checking off this checklist. At the end of the day, I don't know how many items are on here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8 items. Okay. Progress is one thing is done is check, check, check. Progress is also committing to this, sharing it with somebody, creating the checklist, sharing it publicly. Committing is also understanding the quote that is now my favorite quote that is literally on repeat in my brain every single day now is one day or day one. Mm-hmm. And how your day one doesn't have to be perfect. Like yesterday could have been my day one, but I didn't work out because we were traveling all day. And I could have, but I didn't. But it was still my kind of day one. I'm not going to discount it that I didn't start it because I still made a conscious effort to do the other things. And I think what stops people from taking their day one is because they make it so complicated. And then you have to check off this big list and it has to be this big thing when they're not starting with those little steps. So people would be like, Renee, why aren't you just doing 75 hard? Why? The reason why it's 25 hard is because I'm going to Vegas on the 25th day. And I want to have a little fun. And so, and it's like, but I want from now until then to be strict discipline. And who knows what part of this will extend. Maybe I'll just end up keeping on doing this. Maybe this will be a forever thing. I don't know. But to tell myself that I don't have a little bit of progress every single day is a shame. Right. And
It is a shame.
We need to celebrate those little things.
It is
one
a
of it
shame.
that's
And it's
not on
actually
here.
one of the things, actually, if I can share, I know you want to go do your workout, but one last thing that I want to share with your audience is at the end of every day, one of the practices that I've instituted for myself is writing down 3 things that I'm proud of myself for. And I think that because so often we focus on the negatives, on the things we didn't do, on where we failed, on where we didn't show up. And yet every single day, there are things that we do well. And so making it an intentional choice every single day to find 3 things that I can be proud of myself for. So I want to share that, and I want to assign that to all of your listeners is every day. Find 3 things that you're proud of yourself for.
Ladies, 3 things. And they could be the tiniest little things or the biggest things in the world, right?
Like, and sometimes you know what it is? Sometimes for me is not necessarily the things I did. Sometimes the things I didn't do. Like, okay, I didn't yell at my husband when he left whatever. Sometimes the things we didn't do, we can be proud of ourselves.
100%. Yeah, I was going to say you can proudly say that you put the toilet paper roll on the roll, as opposed to leaving it blank.
I don't
That
get
could be
that.
a huge thing for some people. Okay, before we go, I have one last question for you. What does it mean for you to be a wild woman?
Oh, for me, it's about living a fully expressed life, being the highest, truest version of myself. That, for me, is being a wild woman.
I love it. And you are so wild. Sandra, if people want to go online to find you, where can they go?
They can go. I hang out a lot on Instagram. So my handle on Instagram is sandra.chuma. And you can also find me at iamworthy.com.
Cool. All that is in the show notes. Sandra, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.